Hi, and welcome to Lepien Life.
This podcast is all about wisdom for daily living, where we talk about marriage, parenting, life, business, and just trying to stay grounded in this busy world.
We're not going to pretend to have all the answers, but we do think it's important to be able to slow down, think about life, and to be able to find out what our purpose is.
So whether you're at the gym or just getting ready to start your day, we're glad that you're here. Let's jump into the conversation. Welcome back to another episode of Lepien Life. We are in the middle of a series talking about balance. And this week we are going to break down finding balance in rest. So I think we want to just start off with defining what rest is. I think it can be a misconstrued idea of, things that people do thinking they're restful activities. But when we are talking about rest, what do you think that we are meaning, or what are we meaning by that?
You and I were talking about this, and one of the things that we had come to is we wrote down that rest is intentional disengagement from striving. Mm-hmm. It's an intentional, so it's something that happens on purpose, intentional disengagement from striving. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are sitting there binge watching Netflix. This is something else that you had mentioned too. Like just binge watching Netflix. No, that's a waste of time. That's not necessarily restful. But a couple of things that I had written down is that in the midst of this, that it is when you are recovering, recalibrating, and reconnecting. Mm-hmm. Now, for some people, they actually can work and rest. Right? Mm-hmm. Like there are some people that actually, like if they're working on something, their mind is like that particular work might actually be very refreshing for them. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the key to that is the prefix, re. That is whenever you see re, it is a reestablishing something that has been lost. So when we see words like recreation, well, what are we doing? We're recreating within ourselves. We're doing something fun. We're doing recreational things. We're recreating within us something that we have lost. And in the same way, I think that's what rest is ultimately doing, is it is intentional disengagement from striving. It is taking time to rest, and it is taking time to recover the energy and the striving for which we have been putting into, whether that is work or whether that's reading or whatever that activity might be. So I think that thinking about rest in that way as being intentional, but it is this intentional sort of disengagement in order to reprioritize a recovery within our soul, within our body, and within our mind.
Can you say those 3 R words again? Recover?
Yeah, sure. Recover, recalibrate, and reconnect.
Okay, so when you recover, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, for me, recovering looks like pulling away from people.
Because you're an introvert.
I'm an introvert. Mm-hmm. So recovery looks like stepping away from having to expend a lot of mental and emotional energy for somebody else's benefit. I don't mind doing those things. Obviously, I care about people. I want to see people grow. But at the end of the day, that's very draining for me. Mm-hmm. And so I need to recover. I need to rest. I need time away so that I can just recover that space because I've given so much of myself away to others. And that was something that was actually really helpful in our marriage counseling, because you're the exact opposite, right? Like you're more extroverted. You've become more introverted. I've won you over a little bit.
I'm 50-50.
Yeah, I was going to say, like you've come over a little bit to the dark side. And that's okay. You're welcome on the team. And so, but for more extroverted people, they would hate that, right? The idea of maybe like going away by themselves. They actually find great rest in a completely opposite way, which maybe is being with people. Like I want to be with somebody. I want to hang out with somebody. Let's go somewhere and get a Coke, or whatever. Whereas for me, I'm like, everybody get away from me. Just let me go sit in silence. So for me, that's typically how that looks. Maybe it's reading, or it's some type of personal activity that I like to do that doesn't require anyone else to be present, I suppose. Yeah. Like whether that's reading or going on a walk, chopping firewood. Like those are things that even though I might get tired doing it, it's very recovery and very refreshing for me.
Yeah, I think.
What about you?
Yeah, I was going to answer it if you didn't know. For me, I don't know if it's personality thing or if it's because I'm a mom. I think the recovery thing for me would be doing something that is just for me. So like I think of doing tweezing my eyebrows, something I don't do, every single day. But I have to, like, whenever I get to do that, like, I take the time to do that, it's like a recovery. Like, I'm regaining, like, the ground that was lost during the busyness.
It's a very
and the
odd
chaos.
thing to select when you're thinking about recovery.
I think of like self-care things that I let go of when I'm serving and giving out so much, and so the recovery is like on a Saturday, I'll take time to do the things that I would like. Maybe it's go get a pedicure or something that is like a thing for me that is like a self-care, something that would be a recovery mode for you. What about recalibrate? What does that look like? What is that?
Yeah, I think of recalibrating as sort of refocusing. Like, okay, so maybe it's been a busy week. Maybe it's been, for me, I like to take a Sunday evening, Sunday night before I go to bed, and I like to kind of at least look ahead throughout my week. We talked about time management in a previous episode of this series. And so recalibrating is just like, okay, this last week was really stressful. It had a lot of things going on. Okay, I'm going to refocus myself on what's important for next week. I'm not going to let what happened last week affect what this next week looks like. So I'm just going to recalibrate things, refocus things so that I can stay focused on what I want to get done.
Yeah. I think for my personality, if you go back to the time management episode, we kind of talked about the differences in our personalities. And so, like, I can go 90 to nothing, but when I do that, things get, like there's chaos around the 90 to nothing, so my work environment, like my desk, gets kind of chaotic, so the recalibration for me would be, I need to clean and organize before I start my day and get my desk in order so that when it gets up to 90 to nothing, things are back, to where they are. So that would be something I would say, or even it's just like getting your laundry done, or, something that's like a recalibration mode of you have a messy closet and it's in the closet and it can stay messy because it's in the closet. I'm the guilty party here. So I'm speaking from personal experience. But when I take the time to actually do the laundry and get it all together, that's a recalibration of like, it's a restful thing.
I think that's good. I mean, like, because I do think that a clean workstation is a clear mind, and so in that sense, when things do get crazy, it is even we were talking about that earlier before we started recording, like one of the things that I like to do when I get stressed, or when I get, like, one of the things that actually brings me a great deal of rest is cleaning the house. Some people don't believe, and
I love that about you.
Let's say some people don't believe that when I tell them that I've done your laundry. I do your laundry more than you do mine. Because it's
we
just
can
the
go
fact
back
that,
to why.
because of the fact that when we first got married, you shrunk one of my favorite shirts. So I was like,
I folded your shirts.
I'm doing my laundry forever, and I'm okay with that. That's not a complaint. I just hold it over your head when I need to.
Okay with it.
It's like who is it? Bergazzi, whenever he says that, he does his own laundry, and he says, I was just holding on to that, until, so when I was losing an argument, I could say, well, I do my own laundry, and hopefully don't get copyright for stealing his joke. But, to that effect, like, that brings me rest, because it means that, like, clutter bothers me. Clutter doesn't bother you, and everybody's different. And so in that sense, for me, doing the work of cleaning up the house actually brings me a great deal of rest, because it's bringing order, it's bringing organization, and it's bringing peace in what feels like a chaotic situation and environment whenever there's clutter and not cleanliness around, when it comes to just things. And so I think that everybody is different, but that's helpful to think about those terms.
Okay, and then reconnect was the last R. So what does that look like?
I think that in essence what you want to do when you're resting, when you're reconnecting, is taking some time to slow down and reconnect with your purpose, reconnect with your overall goals. Maybe in some sense it's reconnecting in a relationship. Maybe that's us taking time. Like one of my favorite things that we do is we just go on a walk. That's very restful for me, to just go on a walk and just talk. Like, we don't have necessarily an agenda. It's just reconnecting with you. And then other times it's just sitting down, and for me sometimes it's sitting down with one of my pocket notebooks and just sitting down and just reflecting and reconnecting with the Lord, reconnecting with a passage of Scripture. I like using a commonplace book that has quotes. Proverbs says, walk with the wise and you will be wise. So for me, when I get too overwhelmed, or instead of going to my phone, I don't scroll through social media, I'm going to my commonplace book so that I can pull up the wise words of great men and women who have long lived before us. So I'm reconnecting with things that are important to me, that do help me achieve my overall goals. And so I think that's a helpful aspect to that. So, and so in some sense, maybe it's reconnecting with a relationship. In other aspects, it's simply reconnecting with yourself, reconnecting with the Lord, reconnecting with your purpose, reconnecting with what really helps bring you life and bring joy into your life. So in a sense, that's what I mean by reconnecting.
Yeah. I don't know if this would fall in that category. One of the things that I thought of when we were talking about what is rest or what it maybe is restful is like we talked about going on hikes as a family, or like when I get to go play tennis or something. That is something that is a restful activity, even though it's like super physically demanding, but it like fills my soul. It refreshes. It's so I don't know if that fills in the reconnect part, but I do like quality time is a big deal for me. And so whenever we get to have quality time together, just you and me, like I get a lot of quality time with kids.
Yeah, you do.
But just having that time, that is a reconnecting. So how there's this idea like in our culture that to have rest is like to stop and to like not work and not do, or to quit something, or to not be involved, to just pull back. And we've kind of combated that a little bit so far. But how do we then live in this like restful like how do you then find rest in just your daily life, like living restfully? What does that look like?
I think it does look different for everybody, to a certain extent. I have friends that live in big, large metropolitan cities, and every time I go to, visit them or family, or we have to go through one, I hate it, because I'm like, oh, it's too many people. It's so loud.
Solid people.
And so for me, I think part of that is that we have been intentional about where we live, for us personally. We live kind of out in the country, so for us, sometimes it's just sitting in the backyard. And of course you can be in a big city and still sit in your backyard and have peacefulness too. But so I think to a certain extent it is trying to take control of your life and being a good time manager, and how you're managing your life, and when I'm saying yes to things, when I'm saying no to things, because every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. So if you're looking at your life and you're feeling like you're going, you're constantly producing, well, eventually that catches up to you. Because if you're not putting fresh, to borrow a gardening illustration, the fact is like if we live in a climate, if we have a greenhouse outside, or we have a tomato plant in there, at some point in time that tomato plant is going to use up all the nutrition that's within its potted area that its roots can reach. And either it's going to have to spread its roots to new areas, or what's going to more than likely happen is it's going to stop producing things, because it's not going to have enough nutrition in order to help produce the next batch of crop. So it takes the gardener to come in and put fresh nutrients into the ground so that it can constantly be producing. So if you're one of those people that are constantly producing, hey, that's great. That's not impossible. Maybe that's what brings you life and joy. But that just means that you're going to also have to make sure and be intentional about taking time to refresh yourself and refresh your mind and be learning new things and filling your life with new things, because otherwise you're going to end up using up everything that you have and you're not going to have anything to actually produce the fruit.
Right. Yeah.
Does that help answer that question?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if you had any thoughts about that as well.
I think it is just that intentionality. I was going to recommend going back to the time management episode and living in that self-discipline, I think, is how you live restfully. And it feels like, if you have my personality, I don't know if it feels more natural to you. If you have my personality, it feels like work to have to rest, to create the lifestyle that gives you rest, because it's like a task. It's something that you have to do. It's the self-discipline that doesn't come naturally. But if you do the self-discipline, you find yourself living restfully because you've done the work, ahead of the life getting ahead of you.
Well, and I mean, of course, our bodies to an extent force us to rest when we sleep. But if you're constantly, what ends up, I think, happening for people that are constantly going all the time, and you tell me that if this is true, this is what I think that I've observed just watching people. Not necessarily about you, but just about all kinds of people that I've known throughout my life. I'm 42. And people that I know who are constantly in productive mode, they're going, typically have a tendency to crash pretty hard. right? Where it's like you're going, and then all of a sudden it's just like, it's almost like your mind, your brain, your body, your soul is just going, nope, we're done.
I even get, sometimes I feel physically ill.
Sure.
Like I feel like I need to take a sick day because I feel so worn out from working so hard.
Yeah. And that doesn't happen all the time.
No, yeah.
But it just happens every now, you know, where it's just like, there's that person's gone a little too far.
Yeah.
So I think that what we have to remember is now while I don't think that it is required of us to, I think that, you know, by almost the laws of nature, we need to rest. But I think that what we have to remember is that constant productivity is not always required of us. And I think that's easier for some people to balance in their lives. You know, this whole series has been about balance. You know, the fact that you look out in nature and unless you're like in the rainforest where there is constant rain and constant nutrition and constant turnover of fertilization in the soil and all those things, like that's what's necessary. That is a busy ecosystem in order to let trees continually produce fruit and be productive. That's not the way that most of the world is, though. Everything comes in seasons, which is what this balance last episode, part 3, I think was about, was seasons of life and finding balance in that. Because at the end of the day, if you're constantly producing, then you just have to take that extra effort to make sure that you're filling your life with the nutrition, in a sense, whether that's the food you eat, the amount of sleep that you take, that you have every single night, or the things that the intellectual things you're investing into your life. Otherwise, you'll end up giving what you ultimately don't have, and it ends up suffering.
What do you think, like when you think about that, hyper producer people, or even on the flip side, we'll just take the hyper producer person real quick, feeling guilty that they have to rest, or like it's a badge of honor to work through the sickness when they should take a sick day, you know, or something like that. Or on the flip side, the judgmental that will judge the people that take the sick day, you know, like, I don't know if you have any
I feel
thoughts.
like that's probably more of a question for you, because I'm not that kind of a person. Like for me, I feel like I have a fairly good balance between the work that I do and going, no, I'm checked out, I'm done. Like, and I don't think I've ever had that problem.
What advice would you give?
Well, I'm interested in you answer that question first. Don't always just push it on me. Like, what do you have? You're a hyper productive person. You're working all the time. Sometimes I even have to tell you, hey, close your computer and just be with our family. Like, so what is it that you need to do, and what is it that you need to think about whenever you're, you know, either going, is it just that, oh, I just have things that I need to get done, so I either have to do it today or I have to do it tomorrow, or like, what is that? What advice would you give yourself?
I think it's just a self-awareness, like knowing that the tasks, they're going to be there tomorrow, you know, and being okay with, just like, it's a self-discipline and a self-awareness of being okay with, like, I ultimately I am replaceable, you know, at everything that I do. Someone else could probably do that
All
thing,
of us are.
you know? And so it's just kind of recognizing, like, nothing is going to, I mean, unless I live in the urgent all the time and everything's an emergency, which I don't, but it can wait till tomorrow, you know? And I think it took time for me to, you know, accept that I could, you know, take a sick day, or, you know, not answer every single thing, you know, right away, or, and two, like, also my personality, if I get a notification, I have to check it. And then if I check it, then I'll forget if I let it, if it's been checked, you know? And so creating the systems that push those into reminders and push those into time blocks so that they're waiting for me, you know, and I don't feel like I have to attend to it right now. So it's just self-awareness and self-discipline.
It does seem like some of that is just perception. Like what you were saying about, you know, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, well, my job's going to replace me, right? And I think that's the aspect of going, what are we spending our time? Again, we keep coming back to time management, because time management is such a big part of balance. How are we spending our time? And I also think some of it comes back to identity too, where people find their identity in what they produce. But that's not biblical.
Sure.
Right? We don't find our fulfillment in what we produce. Our true fulfillment.
Yeah.
It can be fulfilling in what we produce. It's great to look at something and go, wow, look what I did. Yeah. It's great. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that. But our identity is not grounded in what we produce. our identity is founded in what someone else has produced for us, namely Christ, what Christ has done for us, that we are children of God, and while productivity is wonderful and it is good, at the end of the day, we realize that I think that's a mistake that can be made by anyone, not just hyper producers, but anyone, even people with great balance in their life. It's easy to still look at the things that we produce as that's what defines whether or not we were successful in this life. And I think that we have to try to squelch that idea, and try to recognize, okay, the work that I do, I'm replaceable in. And I think this goes back to intentionality of what actually is important, which is, but where are the areas where I'm not replaceable, right? Like you as my wife, you as the mother of our children, that's not replaceable.
Right.
And so when work or productivity around things comes in between that, not just for you, but for myself, like I apply this to myself or any of our listeners who maybe are in that situation, nothing becomes more important than that. And so if the work is replaceable, then that means that I can let it wait till tomorrow. And so I think that's good. I've received good advice from actually your brother once, your older brother, that told me once, he said, there's always, and again, it's a simple idea, but it just hit me in the right moment. And he said, look, there's always going to be tasks that are left undone at the end of the day. And I was like, okay, you're a super successful businessman, and you're telling me that there's tasks that are left to the end of the day. Okay, I'm okay with that then. There's always going to be things to do. So at the end of the day, I have to be selective about the things that I just say, okay, I'll push that off to tomorrow. I'm going to go do something else that's important.
Yeah, that's good. I want to talk kind of about the dynamic of like families. We're in the teenager season, and different kids, different schedules. We've got 2 drivers now. Kaden works. Ayla's probably about to have a job outside the home. Right now she's working for me inside the home, but they have different activities. They're super involved in the youth group. We homeschool, all the things that kids bring. And if they were involved in sports and activities, in those seasons, how do families find rhythms of rest together? What are some things that families can do to find those restful rhythms?
Well, remember, rest is going to be something where you're not necessarily striving for something, but you're recovering, you're recalibrating, you're reconnecting. So what is it that brings life to your family, right? Like for our family, it's probably going on hikes. It's playing games. Those are the types of things, or even just sitting out back having conversations. Sometimes we'll sit down and watch home videos. And that's a great deal of fun. We're laughing, we're carrying on. Sometimes we're crying, we're laughing so hard watching what the kids are doing and saying when they were, 3 and 4 and 5. We did that just last night. So I think every family is different. So maybe for some families it's playing Mario Kart, sometimes we've done that. Maybe it's reading books together. Maybe it's going on walks together. Maybe it's going to a park. Maybe it's going fishing. Maybe it's going to the movies together. I would probably say try to find something that you're doing together. If you go to, where you're interacting with each other. If you're going to a movie, you're not interacting at all. It's a great experience to have together because you have something to talk about afterward. Maybe it's just going out to dinner together. If you feel like you can't afford to take your family out, well then pack a picnic and go to a park and spend time there together. Like, what is it that makes your family tick? Like, what is it that brings your family life? So everyone is different, but I think if you discover what those things are, start doing those things. Be intentional about them and go, okay, let's maybe need to keep track of how often you do those things, and then really just put them on your calendar. If it needs to be something that you say, you know what, this is important, this helps bring value to our family, then we're going to put it in the calendar and we're going to get reminders about it. We're going to make it happen. For families that are super, super busy, that's going to become more difficult. Especially as kids get older, everybody's schedule starts doing other things. Okay, well, that is the next season of your life, right? Like, okay, like as your kids get older and eventually once they leave, you're not going to be in the same house together, right? So again, it just comes down to measuring your expectations, I think, of going, okay, well, as our family grows and people start going different directions, people get busier. Okay, guys, we do, remember, at the end of the day, this family is still a family unit, and we have certain values, and we are going to do something together. Like, we're going to take time to do that. So I think it's just about being intentional and trying to work through those things and working around people's schedules, and then also making it a priority. If it's important, then make it a priority. What are your thoughts on that?
I think on the practical side, we have a shared calendar.
Right.
A Lepien family shared, so
Share
everybody's
text message and things
everybody's
like that,
device can see, what's on the calendar.
Yeah.
Now that we have 2 drivers, it's a little bit easier to say yes to things for the kids because they can
Sure.
take themselves.
Yeah.
But generally, they have to act like there's no like assumed for the kids. I get to do this thing because
Sure.
I was invited, or I get to do this thing because it's happening in whatever activity I'm involved
Right.
in. It always runs through the filter of you and I talking
Sure.
and consulting the family calendar and working out the logistics. So there's never this like chaotic,
Out of control.
assumption that everybody gets to do all the things.
Yeah.
So that is one thing, and they don't really get to, I think that is rare that they come to us and ask for permission, and we give the green light to
Sure.
things because we're available to take them, or whatever.
Sure. Well, and we've also cultivated that culture, but also we invite them into that conversation the older they get.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not like a 5-year-old coming to us and saying, "Can I please have a piece of candy?" and us saying yes or no. Like, okay, well, we walk them through that process so that we're training them as parents on how to, well, how's your week been going? Like, there have been times where it's like, hey, it's probably a good idea. Like, there have been times where we've said, you know what, it's probably a good idea that you go take a nap. Because right now you just did a sleepover and you're exhausted and you want to go do this other thing. It's probably not a good idea for as tired as you are.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like it is that coaching them through it. So when you say even asking like permission for it, we look at it. They may be thinking they're just asking permission, but from our perspective, we're helping to coach them to think through. Here's what it looks like when me and your mom make decisions about things that we do or don't do based upon how busy we've been and how much rest we think that we need in our lives. This is the process by which we determine whether or not we're going to go do something.
Yeah.
And so I think that helping parents, I think, to be able to recognize and see, it's not just like giving your kids permission or not permission. It is walking them through the process of how do you, as a mature adult, determine what things you're going to do and what things you're going to say no to, so that you can take time to recover, recalibrate, and reconnect if necessary.
I think it's kind of important to note too, like in that process, sometimes we say no based on how overexerted we are.
Sure.
Because we
Sure.
need to recoup, or
Sure.
all of that.
Yeah.
And so the ride, the person that
Sure.
is spending the
Sure.
time to go take you and
Sure.
pick you up and all the
Yeah.
things needs the rest too.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times parents will just give and give and give and give and not take inventory of how
Sure.
much they've been giving. And then they feel guilty when they tell their kids
Sure.
no, or, something like that.
Yeah.
So it is, that does happen sometimes where I will say,
Sure.
I can't on Saturday morning. I
Sure.
need until this time before I commit to anything,
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
So that does happen. Another thing we do is Caden, he works, and so he puts his work schedule in on a shared calendar. We all see when he's, so as we're making plans, we know who's going where what,
Yeah.
and it's all connected to our phone.
Yeah.
And that helps so much. I think sometimes people keep it in their head, or parents aren't communicating, so just one parent has the schedule and the other
Right.
parent has no idea, what, and they're just told when to do what. So I think that is a part of it, is
Sure.
the communication and just a practical
Sure.
thing that we do. I don't know if you have
Yep.
anything to
Nope.
add to that. That helps everybody live restfully. Let's talk about people that maybe ignore that need for margin, or maybe they fill the margin for rest with something that's like useless. Like we mentioned Netflix before, but what happens when we think we're resting and it's not really resting? What are we actually doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just wasting time
Yeah.
at that point. Because I think rest is intentional. I don't think that rest is just something that we just lay down on the couch and do nothing. Because that's not refilling us, right? We're just sitting there wasting time. Now, that's not to say that type of entertainment can't be restful, right? Like maybe it's sitting down and watching a World War II documentary. No, I'm just kidding. That would be restful.
No, but it is restful when we like have a show that we enjoy together.
Sure, that's
and
right. Yeah.
That's a fun thing.
And that's why I think like binge watching Netflix is always an easy thing to go to. But sometimes, like we just recently watched a documentary on Netflix that it was like, this was very interesting. It was stimulating. It was we were thinking about it. We were talking about it later. We were talking with our kids about it. Like some of them were watching it with us too. So it was like we were having some conversations. It was something that we were engaged with. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something that we were just sitting there numbly. It was something that was intentional. And I think, again, it comes that is an important aspect of rest, of time management, of balance, all this whole entire series, if we could sum it up in one word. So many things: good parenting, good growth, spiritual life, marriage, all this stuff. Intentionality. Mm-hmm. It's sitting back and saying, why am I doing the thing that I'm doing? Mm-hmm. It's not just reactionary. It's not just because this is what everybody else is doing. Mm-hmm. It's purposeful. It is intentional. And so if we're going to continually, if we want to be productive, if we want to achieve our purposes and our goals in life, then ultimately at the end of the day, that means that we do need to take time to rest. And in the midst of that, because we're not meant to be constantly productive in our lives, mm-hmm. we need to take time to pull back from striving, reconnect, refresh, recalibrate, so that we're constantly fresh for the next thing that is in front of us.
Yeah. I think it's easy too, like when we're doing the time wasters, that it infringes on our actual need for physical rest.
Sure. Yeah,
so you're exerting yourself
sure.
beyond, what your physical need for rest is.
Sure.
Okay. Final thoughts. I kind of want to land on, so in the 10 Commandments, mm-hmm. it's commanded to take the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about, are we as a New Testament believer, what does that look like mm-hmm. for as a New Testament believer
Sure.
and the Sabbath?
Well, I think that when, the 10 Commandments were not necessarily, like, it wasn't wrong to murder before, only after the 10 Commandments were
sure.
given, right? It was wrong to
Cain
murder
and
before
Abel.
that. Right. Yeah, I mean, from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So the 10 Commandments serve as sort of a standard basis for mm-hmm. the people of Israel and this covenant that God mm-hmm. sets up with particularly the nation of Israel. And so the new covenant, we as followers of Christ are mm-hmm. a part of the new covenant. Mm-hmm. The old covenant, which is based on the law of Moses, which the 10 Commandments are sort of the preamble to mm-hmm. Held up as wonderful sort of Judeo-Christian values.
Sure.
And I think the standard for us as New Testament believers is that whatever is repeated in the New Testament we are required to follow.
Sure.
It is incumbent upon us to follow those things. So 9 of the 10 Commandments are repeated in the New Testament. One of them is not. In fact, it's changed, and that is the Sabbath, which is the 4th, I believe, off the top of my head. And so in the New Covenant, the believers are actually challenged with this new idea of the Sabbath, because Jesus says man wasn't made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath was made for man. And then going on from there, you also have this idea that in the letter to the Hebrews, that Jesus is our seventh day rest. Yeah. He is the Sabbath rest that we are invited into. Yeah. And so it is this rest for our souls that becomes, mm-hmm. that in essence becomes the illustration for salvation. And that the author of Hebrews actually makes the point that God is still in the seventh day of creation, that God rested, that seventh day is still going on, right? Mm-hmm. And we have been invited into that seventh day rest. Mm-hmm. And so the Sabbath is in a sense modified in that sense. So, and then you also have a number of church fathers, early church fathers, that said no, like we celebrate on the Lord's Day. We're not required to follow the Sabbath. Mm-hmm. And so I think that if you and I, as believers, as followers of Christ, I think that it is perfectly fine for us to say, it is a good idea for us to take a day a week and rest, find things that are bringing mm-hmm. life to us, recreation, and recalibrating, reconnecting, all this. Mm-hmm. I think that's great. It's a wonderful thing for us to be able to do. Mm-hmm. Typically, we try to do that.
Right.
But it's another thing to come along and say, no, we are still required to do this because the commandment says so. And I think that's a mistake that mm-hmm. people make. And in fact, I think that I don't know how you can hold to that view when you read Galatians and you read the letter to mm-hmm. the Hebrews, because you just find that that we have been set free from those requirements. Mm-hmm. If you want to say, no, we are commanded to mm-hmm. follow that commandment, well, then you need to hold on to the rest of them as well. Mm-hmm. And so I think at the end of the day, what we should be looking at in our lives is saying, how can I be able to make sure, if my body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, mm-hmm. then how can I, as a follower of Christ, live in such a way that I honor God with my body? In the context, Paul is talking about sexuality, but I think we could maybe take that a step further and say, if I'm going to honor God with my body, that doesn't just mean honoring him with my lustful or in this case, a lack of lustful thoughts, but also, am I taking care of my body? Am I resting and taking time to recover and recalibrate and all of this, so that I'm taking a break from striving, and I'm taking a moment to refresh my mind and refresh my body, so that because I am carrying the Holy Spirit with me. So so that would be my views on that. I think that if you want to be able to take a day a week, that's great. It's wonderful. I think no problem with that. But I don't think you necessarily have to give biblical justification for that principle.
Sure.
I think that you can be able to say, yeah, this is a good principle that we do. If we sometimes miss it, that's fine. It's not like I'm committing sin. But on the flip side of that, Sabbath is not something that we as New Testament believers are required to follow.
So on a practical note, living a life in the restfulness of and with Christ is a life surrendered to Christ and walking in his grace.
Yeah.
What does that look like for a daily life in the life of a Christian to live restfully surrendered to Christ? Do you have any practical or advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I would just say, recognizing that it's not ultimately up to me and you in everything that we produce. The author of Psalm 127 constantly is saying this. In fact, let me just go ahead and read that for our listeners here, because I think that it's so helpful for us to think in terms of what the author is meaning. So in Psalm 127, I've been thinking about this actually quite a bit the last few weeks. The author says, typically, especially in the church world, we like to quote verse 1, "Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain." And we usually stop there, and that's fine. But the author continues and uses this phrase over and over again. So let me start again. "Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat. For while they sleep, he provides for, or he grants sleep to those that he loves." So in vain, in vain, in vain. In vain you labor, in vain you watch, in vain you rise early. And so ultimately, all of this is in vain, meaning it's purposeless, it's meaningless, if we think that by our own efforts are these things actually achieved in life. So it is the Lord who builds, it is the Lord who protects, it is the Lord who provides, who gives rest. And we don't stop laboring. That's not an excuse. That's not like an excuse to be lazy. But we give our best. We give our best, but we rest in the knowledge that God is ultimately the one that gives and provides the results. So I think if we can be able to live our lives in such a way, recognizing that, yes, we don't become lazy, we stay intentional, but we also allow ourselves to be able to live in the recognition that the results of all that we do is in the hands of the Lord.
Amen to that. Do you have any other final thoughts?
Nope, that's it.
I think that is a good place to wrap it up. We are so glad that you joined us as we talked about finding balance in rest, and I hope that you enjoyed this series. This concludes the series of just finding balance in our daily lives, and I hope that it challenges you. And I just want to remember that a life fully at rest is a life surrendered to Christ and walking in that grace. So we will see you next time.
All right. Well, thanks for spending your time with us today.
If something in this episode resonated with you, feel free to share it with a friend, leave us a review, like and subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. We're here to help you live life to the fullest.
Yeah, because every day it's not about living perfectly, it's just about living life well. And so that's our goal with every single one of these episodes.
We'll see you next time on Lepien Life.